Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about Earth System's 8.ESS2.3. And this is highlighted on the screen. This is to describe the relationship between the processes and forces that create igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. And when we think about those, we think about the sedimentary rock being the sediments. We see a lot of these. These are where weathering and erosion has taken place, and the rocks on Earth have been broken down. Sedimentary rock can be broken down into little particles we call sediments. Um, they can be compacted and become metamorphic rock. And if you think about the word metamorphic or metamorphosis, you're thinking about a change. And that's what's happening to these rocks. They are changing as time goes on. And then finally, we have the igneous rocks. And igneous, you think about ignite, you think about burning, you think about melted. These actually form from magma, which is underground, and then the lava, which comes up onto the surface. There are two types of igneous rock. They are extrusive and intrusive. Intrusive means inside the earth, and that's going to be formed from the magma. And extrusive is going to be formed from the lava, which is actually up on top of the earth. And there's going to be a whole relationship of how these rocks change and they can become other types of rocks. And we're going to talk about that in something called the rock cycle. And I think you're familiar with the rock cycle. By the end of this, you should be able to simply write down on a sheet of paper the three types of rocks, which are igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic, and then draw arrows to each one what they could become. Could igneous rock turn into sedimentary rock? And the answer is yes, it could, because it could actually be weathered and eroded to the point where it creates sediments, which are required for sedimentary rock. Sedimentary rock can be broken down into sediments once again and become a different type of sedimentary rock. And metamorphic rock can be broken down as well and turned into sedimentary rock. Any of these that we have, the igneous, the sedimentary, or even metamorphic rock, can go through a change through heat and pressure. Heat and pressure. And those can turn rocks into a different type of metamorphic rock. And these are going to be much harder, much denser rocks. And then finally, the igneous rock, remember on our convection cycle, how the heat will rise and then the cooler rocks then will begin to melt back down. They'll sink back down because they're more dense, and then they can turn back into a magma and create an igneous rock. But we'll go into depth on this a little bit later. This is pretty straightforward. You're just really going to have to remember these terms, study them the best you can, and then hopefully you can research. I believe IXL has a wonderful section where you can look on there and find different types of igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. And a lot of those will be very familiar to you. The best way that I found a couple of videos. I'm going to show you the links. If you can't find those particular links, or if you can't click on them, if for some reason they don't work, then right down here under Rock Cycle, if you can't click on them, just simply type in the URL associated with each of these, and this will take you to the videos. I'm going to play them for you on the screen, and hopefully the computer audio will match. Sometimes that can be a little tricky with the technology, but I want you to do the best. Now on this first one, I want you to think about the rock cycle. I want you to think about the extrusive and intrusive igneous rocks, because that's going to be very, very specific.
Rocks are everywhere. They are large and small, heavy or light, porous or dense. But rocks in some shape or form can be found all over the planet. Different types of rocks are formed in different ways. There are three main types of rock: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Igneous is a word that means fiery. Igneous rock is formed when magma or lava cools. Sometimes magma cools slowly underneath the Earth's surface. This forms intrusive igneous rock, like granite. Other times, lava cools when it comes to the surface in a volcanic eruption. This forms extrusive igneous rock. Some examples of extrusive igneous rock are tuff, obsidian, and pumice. Igneous rocks make up about 95% of the Earth's crust. The next type of rock is sedimentary rock. Sediment is small particles of sand, mud, and organic material that settle to the bottom of water or land areas, often lakes or oceans. Sedimentary rocks are formed when sediment accumulates over time in deposits that form layers. These layers become squeezed and compressed over time until they consolidate into a rock. Sedimentary rocks are the types of rocks in which fossils may be found, since the process of forming sedimentary rocks can preserve plant and animal remains that are deposited into the sediment layers. Some examples of sedimentary rock are limestone, shale, and sandstone. The third type of rock is metamorphic rock. The word metamorph means to change form, and metamorphic rock is rock that has been changed by extreme heat and pressure. Sedimentary rock, igneous rock, or even other metamorphic rocks can be changed by heat and pressure into new kinds of rock. Metamorphic rocks can be formed by being deep under the earth where pressure and temperatures are high, or when rock near the surface is heated up by the movement of tectonic plates or magma. Different types of rocks become different types of metamorphic rock when exposed to heat and pressure. For example, shale becomes slate. Sandstone becomes quartzite. And limestone becomes marble. Rocks are slowly but constantly changing in something known as the rock cycle. The rock cycle begins with magma, or hot melted rock, deep beneath the Earth's surface. This magma becomes crystallized, becoming igneous rock. These rocks begin to erode or break down into small pieces because of wind, water, or other forces. The small fragments of rock are carried away as sediment when water passes over them, and are deposited in layers, which eventually become sedimentary rocks. Then, some sedimentary rocks are pushed below the surface due to tectonic activity, where they are exposed to heat and pressure, transforming them into metamorphic rocks. If the rocks are buried even deeper, they may melt and form magma, starting the cycle all over again. Of course, sedimentary and metamorphic rocks can be eroded into sediment, and igneous rock can become metamorphic rock or lava. But one way or another, rocks all over the world keep changing from one form to the next.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. We're going to be watching a second video, but that first video, I hope you kept in mind the extrusive and intrusive igneous rocks and the differences in how each one can become a different type of rock. You might know that sedimentary rock can form from either one, igneous or metamorphic, and metamorphic can form from igneous or sedimentary, and um, igneous sedimentary and metamorphic rock can become igneous rock if they go down and they get back into the bottom layer of the convection cycle and they become melted into magma, and to start the process all over again. This next video is a little more elementary, you might say, but it still has a lot of good information in it. It really breaks down the sedimentary or the sedimentary rock, however you want to pronounce that. And it talks about the process, and that this goes directly to our standard, the processes that form each of these. And so we're going to talk about how the sedimentary rock is formed from three parts. And you may remember this from a handout that we did in class. And that was that the first thing that would have to happen if you're going to make a rock, especially a sedimentary rock, is you're going to need sediments. And those are going to be coming through weathering and erosion. And these sediments are going to be deposited. That means they're going to be placed in an area. The next thing that will happen, you're going to have them packed together, and then you're going to have to glue, they're going to have to be glued together. So the fancy science words for that are deposition, which is the depositing of sediments. Then you have compaction, which is the packing together of the sediments. And then another word for gluing them together or sticking them together would be to cement them together, and that is called cementation. Cementation. So there are three steps: deposition, compaction, and cementation. And during this next video, you will be able to um, learn about that. But I want you to really try to cement this into your brains.
Phil Robertson. Today I'm going to be teaching you about the rock cycle. First, you need to know about the three different types of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic. Each of these rocks has a unique way of forming and can even transform into one another. Now, let's start by explaining how igneous rocks form. This volcano looks like it's about to erupt. Beneath the Earth's crust is liquid magma. Magma usually travels to the Earth's surface through volcanoes. Once the liquid hot magma makes its way above ground, it cools and hardens over time into new rock. These rocks that form are what we know as igneous rocks. Sedimentary and metamorphic rocks can become igneous rocks by melting and hardening, although this is a very rare occurrence. Now, let's move on to sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rocks are easy to identify because of their name. Sedimentary rocks are composed of loose sediments, hence the name. Parts of igneous and metamorphic rocks can become sedimentary rocks through weathering, erosion, compaction, and cementation. Weathering and erosion are natural forces that cause pieces of rocks to break off into smaller sediments. This is usually caused by wind or the water. These sediments then get carried away and gather over time, as you can see here. This is called deposition. Now, compaction and cementation binds these sediments together with pressure and other earth elements, specifically water. The rocks that form are what we know as sedimentary rocks. Finally, let's discuss metamorphic rocks. Metamorphic rocks form from a process, similarly called metamorphosis. Metamorphosis occurs when other rocks are subject to intense heat and pressure. Let's take a look. Underground, magma can find its way through porous and loose materials. When the magma can't get to the surface, it starts to change the sediments and materials that are close enough to feel its heat. The heat from the magma and the pressure from the tons of material above cause the surrounding sediments and materials to change their composition and structure. Metamorphosis usually occurs at temperatures between 300 and 700 degrees Celsius. These new rocks that form are what we know as metamorphic rock. Igneous and sedimentary rocks can go through metamorphosis if they are buried deep enough under the Earth's surface and if they are exposed to high enough temperatures. Let's get back to my office now. As you can see, rocks form in many ways, and each rock has the potential to become a different kind of rock under the right circumstances. The rock cycle has existed for as long as we can date back. Rocks have been forming and transforming for millions of years. The Earth is made of rocks, and now you know how they form. Thanks.
Okay, hopefully these videos have been enlightening to you in your quick review of this particular standard, Once again, we've discussed the processes that form the three types of rocks, and they form through plate tectonics, through tectonic movement. So you have heat and pressure creating metamorphic rock. You have the sediments that go through the three processes of deposition, compaction, and cementation. And you have the igneous rock, which are formed from magma. Magma, once again, um, is under the earth, and so those, when it hardens under the earth, it is going to be intrusive igneous rock. And then when the lava, which is outside on the earth, hardens, it becomes extrusive igneous rock. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. So as you go over the little questions that you have, if you have any doubts, then go back and review these videos, and hopefully they will help you. And I will see you next time.